Good evening, good evening. It is December 5th, or I'm sorry, it is December 6th. Is it? Yes, we are on Sunday, December 5th. Okay, yes, it is Sunday. Got that a little messed up there, but yes, it's Sunday night, which means it is time for Sunday Night Magic. Welcome everyone to the Variable Play Network. My name is Javi, and this is Sunday Night Magic, where we talk about magic, mostly maybe Commander related, but today it's going to be something a little different. So, thank you for those of you who are watching. I will definitely be reviewing the comments and sharing some of them on screen here. So, please feel free to drop a message. Today is not really going to be news per se. I'm a little late to the party. We're going to be talking about stuff that were announced earlier last week. These are announcements that came out on December 2nd from Wizards of the Coast, the creators of Magic the Gathering. And instead, what we're going to be doing here is more of an editorial of like how I feel that this is going to be impacting Magic all around. Hey, thank you, Mark. Welcome to the show. Please, your feedback and input for today's episode will be much appreciated. So, as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about an announcement that was made last week, but instead of it being news or just format or magic content related, I'm going to make this a little bit of an editorial in a way because I wanted to share my thoughts. I've been thinking about this for at least 2 or 3 days now, just thinking about how I want to deliver this information. And again, this is purely my opinion on the matter. And I think that there are a lot of sides that you can, or perspectives that can be placed on this situation. And, just come along on the journey with me. And I hope you guys find this entertaining or informative in some way. So, on December 2nd, Magic the Gathering announced a brand new format that they are going to be introducing, which is known as Alchemy. All right, so this was just put up on directly on the Wizards of the Coast page. I believe there was at least 3 or 4 articles that simultaneously came out throughout the day of December 2nd. Alchemy is a brand new format and it's never been heard of. So we're looking at sort of like a new IP in a way. Consider it a new format for playing Magic the Gathering. And to fill in the gaps of what exactly that is, it might seem a little small here in the display, but let me read this out to you. Basically, Alchemy is a new digital first format, okay, that it's launching on December 9. So that means that in about 4 days from now, it is going to be added to Magic Arena. So for those of you who do use or who play Magic Arena, prepare for a patch update that might be in the several gigabytes come December 9. Probably into the 10th considering time zones, but you guys know how that is. This is pretty much Alchemy is going to be including all standard sets, and then it will rotate just like standard does. So it runs parallel to standard, which is kind of odd. But what makes it different is that Alchemy will have regularly balanced cards. And when they say regularly, every time a new set comes out or when they find a problem with certain magic cards, they can retool it and change the cards, which has never been heard of, especially when we're talking about printed magic. Because when they make a card, what is on the card stays on the card and you can never change this stuff. But in digital, you can. So next, they will also incorporate digital-only mechanics. This isn't the first time they've done it, so I'm going to get into that just a little bit later. And then finally, Alchemy will have supplemental cards for each premier set. When they say premier set, they mean that every expansion of Magic that's come out recently that would maybe be in the standard format is going to get some specific cards introduced into the Alchemy format. Okay? Now, they're making it perfectly clear that Alchemy is not replacing anything. Standard will continue to be as it is, and there will still be the I believe they call it the Horizons, but they have a historic. They have historic format for cards that have rotated out of Arena. they still have like their brawl and their other little like weekly drafts and events and stuff. So it's supposedly not going to have any impact. But I kind of beg to differ. And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about here. Um, owning rebalanced cards also apparently get you the version or the alchemy version of the card, so that's fine. At least that they thought ahead, and that you don't need 8 copies of the same card. You have 4 copies, and basically you get to play versions of the card. And that's where some of the problems lie in this situation. So, but before we move on, let me just jump into comments. Hi, Anna. Hello, hello. Thank you very much for joining the episode. I hope you find this informative and useful. Well, magic wise. All right, so let's jump into this. I'm going to start off first with the digital only mechanics and pretty much show you that the Magic Arena, whether you're playing it on your phone or on desktop, I believe it runs on iPads or tablets. It requires a little bit of a bigger screen. Forcing it into a phone also it makes it very very small and difficult to play. I highly do not. I highly discourage people from playing it on a small device. I used to play Arena on desktop, but it's I'm gonna say I haven't played Arena in about a year, so I'm very far behind its metas and how it functions. I really am primarily a commander player. So the way that I'm looking at this is its implications towards paper magic and also in-person magic. So digital only cards, are they good for magic? Let's dive into that. So initially, some cards were introduced into Magic Arena. The card on the left here, Hallowed Priest, I actually had the opportunity to play this card. So it's a 2 to cast 1/1. Whenever you gain life, it gets bigger because you put +1/+1 counters on it, so it gets larger. Okay, that's not anything mechanically unique. You could literally print this card, maybe in proxy form, and add it into paper magic. So there's no issue with that. It's functionally still a normal magic card in all arguments of what a magic card would normally be. Now, next to this is we have the Winged Steed Trainer. The Winged Steed Trainer is a 4 to cast 2/3 human, and it reads that when Winged Steed Trainer enters the battlefield or attacks, conjure Stormfront Pegasus card into your hand. What this means is that it creates a card that gets added to your hand. Unless you have a printed copy of Winged Steed, the Stormfront Pegasus, there's no possible way that you can do actually make this happen in paper form. So this is a digital only card in that it creates cards. You can definitely proxy, like if you really wanted to kind of run this function. There are other abilities that they have introduced. There are, I believe, so Conjure creates cards. They even have abilities that let you look into your library for specific casting cost cards. So these are very tricky, and there's no possible way that you can do it in paper form. Hence, that they are digital only cards. How significant their impact will be in any format, that's arguable, and it's really more of a personal opinion, I think. So let's go ahead and look at the new content that they're going to be creating for Alchemy. So very first one here is Absorb Energy. So as you can see on the center of the card, it has the Magic Arena symbol, and it has 22. So these are pretty much considered like 2022 editions, even though it's starting on December 9. Absorb Energy is a counter spell. Cards in your hand that share a card type with the spell perpetually. Okay, there's never been any wording like that until now, that they perpetually gain this spell cost 1 less to cast. So you're not going to be able to keep track of that in paper form. The moment you draw a new card, how does your opponent know that that was one of the cards that you originally had? So, unless you're playing like a pure honesty system or have all of your cards laid out, you're not going to be able to do that. Now, next, you also have here Toralf's Disciple, a 3 to cast 3/3 haste, which is pretty good stats. And when Toralf's Disciple attacks, conjure 4 cards named Lightning Bolt into your library, then shuffle. Which means that this even breaks a total fundamental rule of Magic that you could literally have maybe 12 copies of Lightning Bolt in your library. Magic only really allows you to have 4 copies of a card. So it's rule breaking in a way. And if you would have a paper form of this, you could have 4 lightning bolts. That is a real card, and you can shuffle it into your library. But you're going to have a lot of copies of Lightning Bolt if you have 4 copies of this Disciple and decide to keep swinging out. So it's a good thing that they even tell you to shuffle. Imagine if they did not tell you to shuffle. I don't know how you would be able to insert it into your library. So these introduce some really fundamentally weird abilities. I understand why they're creating it, and it is unique, but it really is stepping towards the realm of what people are now calling like Hearthstone. I mean, the Hearthstone is a digital card game created by Blizzard Entertainment. So it does look like Magic is trying to almost catch up with them in a way, and you're going to see why there are some issues to that. Some other cards that they did show. So these ones introduce a new concept also. So to the right, we have Ishkana, Brood Mother. So it's a spider, a legendary spider, that has an ability that says exile 2 cards from your graveyard, draft a card from Ishkana's Broodmother's spell book. What is a spell book? So there's a certain list of specific cards assigned to this. It's a weird little pool of cards. Creating a paper version of this is very tricky because you're going to have to be carrying a secondary set of cards just specific for this creature when you use their ability. To the left is the Ominous Traveler. Basically, when it enters the battlefield, you draft a card from the spell book of the Ominous Traveler. It has its own list of creatures that you can choose from, and then it becomes a copy of that, or allows you to cast that spell, and then replaces the Ominous Traveler. These cannot be done. It's really hard to do a paper or a physical copy of these cards. You're really gonna have to be bringing a lot of stuff with you in order just to like meet its requirements, which makes it difficult. So with all of that in mind, let's go to the editorial part here. What I'm seeing as an area of concern for me that, it's not the first time Magic has decided to do like exclusive digital cards. They've already started, as I've shown you in some previous cards. So they've already dipped their toes in this. But what I really think is going to be a problem here is number one, exclusivity of cards. So you're not going to be able to get these cards ever. Maybe some cards become so famous that they're going to make a printed version in some secret layer or try to cash it out. Okay. But there are some cards that have mechanics that can never really see printed form, especially like the cards that have the Seek ability that I wasn't really able to show you an example of, but I encourage you to look it up and just try to figure out how you can turn that into paper form. That it's levels of difficulty that I don't even want to get into. Next is I'm seeing a possible division of focus and resources. What I mean is that Magic's attention to like creating content, their focus might shift because now they have digital only content and then they have physical only content. The amount of people that they have working on these things might even be divided. R&D for research and development of cards might get split up, or a few of them might get pulled out and like, you know what, you're making digital only cards. So they have a totally different meta and biosphere of existing cards to work with, while the ones making physical cards also have their own little world going on, and there could definitely be a disconnect. They might introduce cards that might be format warping, specifically inside Alchemy, and then, or vice versa. They might end up making cards that have answers in Alchemy form, but not in normal standard versions. So the card will go unchecked. So these are some things that I see that might potentially become a problem. Now, in terms of the impact, okay, that might be something that we can discuss at the end here, and I can share some of my thoughts. But the last thing that I'm seeing is that this could set precedents to pretty much become a whole new Magic the Gathering game. Okay, like people were describing it, that this is potentially Hearthstone. This is like a digital game with its own cards. I mean, it's fine. That's perfectly fine. They could rebrand it, they can do whatever they want. It's a format, okay? You don't even have to play it. If you think that these cards are broken, or that, you're supporting paper magic 100%, fine, don't play Alchemy. Problem solved. That there's not going to be really a big issue or significant impact here, unless you're playing maybe both formats. If you're playing physical, if you're playing standard, and then you're playing Alchemy, then yeah, sure, there might be some issues. And there's really one big gaping issue that I am going to talk about next. But you know what? At the end of it, Magic has already made several attempts at other IPs and products. They made their little puzzle quest game. They tried doing the Diablo game, which was a failure. That they've already tried the board game versions of Magic. So there's Arena of the Planeswalker, Duel of the Planeswalker. There's so many versions that, so Magic has already tried, and have. I mean, we can go all the way back to the very first one. We can go to Chandelar, if for all the old school guys watching. So it could just become maybe a new IP, and I'm perfectly fine with that. That the only concern that I have is really the use of the resources. With the escalating prices of Magic products, you think that they might be able to, or they should be hiring more minds behind the scenes to keep the game balanced and fun. But in my personal opinion, we're a little bit in a down. It's a downward incline at the moment. The most recent set is significantly underwhelming, in my opinion. But now we go into where the difficulties of this announcement and new format lie. So, as I showed earlier, okay, Alchemy will be regularly rebalancing cards. What does rebalancing mean? That means that they're going to be taking existing cards and fixing or altering the digital version of it. To give you an idea, okay, let's go with the very first example that they've shown. What you're looking at here on screen is pretty much the same card. You're looking at Cosmos Elixir. On the left, you have the original printed version that came out from the Kaldheim set. And on the right is you have the Arena version. You will notice, as I've shown in some of the previous cards earlier, that on the bottom, there is a Arena symbol on the card. This tells you that this is an Arena version of the card. So let me just jump back to some of the previous artwork. These do not have Arena markers, while the new cards being introduced in 2022, or as of December 9, do have the Arena symbol on the bottom to let you know that these are Arena cards. But next to that, on the top left of the card, you will see next to the name Cosmos Elixir another Arena symbol. This is to let players know that this is a rebalanced version of the card. So, let me just discuss this with you really quick. Cosmos Elixir reads as follows. It is for to cast, it is an artifact, and it says at the beginning of your end step, so when your turn is ending, draw a card if your life total is greater than your starting life total. Players start with 20 life in a standard game of Magic. If you have more than 20 life, basically, you get to draw a card. Otherwise, gain 2 life. Done. Okay? The rebalance version now says at the beginning of your end step, draw a card if your life total is greater than your starting life total. So it's exactly the same. Otherwise, gain 2 life and scry 1. Scry 1 means you get to look at the top of your library. You can put the card underneath or keep it back on top. That's not on the original printed form. I have a printed copy of this Cosmos Elixir. So, one of the things that might be a problem here is that, let's say that you are using Cosmos Elixir in Alchemy on Magic Arena. And this is like a significant piece of like some combo or deck that you're running, that it keeps you alive, and it also gets you cards and gives you information about your library. When you move to printed and when you're playing with your friends casually, you might be looking at the top of your library because you think that, or by default you just recall that this card has a scry effect. The printed version doesn't. So they're adding in text now, which could potentially confuse players who are playing both formats. Like, oh, I built a standard deck, or I'm playing a deck in Alchemy, and like, here's the printed version so that I can play in the shop with my friends. The cards are now fundamentally different only because of like half a sentence here, really. It just says end scry 1. They added something to the card that wasn't originally there. They can't print out the cards to fix this. And I get it that they only want this to be in Alchemy. This is their concept of balancing. But, okay, information that wasn't on the card being added can cause confusion. So that's a concern for me. Next, here we have Luminar Aspirant, another card that I also have the printed version for. It is a 2 to cast cleric. It says at the beginning of combat, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. So it can even target itself and get bigger. So every time you're about to go into a fight, something gets a little bit bigger. Okay? On the right, we're looking at the rebalanced version of the Luminar Aspirant. I'm going to keep doing air quotes. I'm sorry. It's just I don't consider it balanced because there's some parts of it that are just fundamentally stupid. Next. So let's read the ability. At the beginning of your end step, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. These are fundamentally two different cards. One is before combat, one is at the end of your turn. They could have just made a new card that just had this ability. Why are they taking an existing card and just altering its timing? So they're not adding information, but they are altering its timing to that you could miss triggers. And if you miss triggers, that's it. It's gone. Of course, in Arena, a digital version, there's going to be like reminders or things that will let you do this. But imagine that you are running a deck that has 4 Luminar Aspirants. When you move to paper, you're going to be making mistakes with your triggers because you keep thinking it's happening at the end of your turn while it should be happening in combat. And then, when I move to my end step, I'm going to put +1/+1 counters. Your opponents can stop you and say, no, that should have been in combat and you missed your trigger. Like, they will not allow you. So this is not adding words, but this is potentially even calling a judge on you. So it's kind of, I'm going to build up to this later, but again, this is going to really be confusing players. If you are playing both formats, if you're playing printed standard, if you're playing even like printed commander, the wording on some of these cards, if it ever makes it across or are frequently used cards, you could be making a lot of mistakes. Another example here that is also, this one I kind of consider very weird. So we're looking at Arlen's Epiphany. It is a 7 to cast sorcery that says create 2 1/1 bird creature tokens with flying, take an extra turn after this, and then you exile the Epiphany. Okay, that's done. And then it has its foretell ability for 6. You can basically remove this from the game for 2 and then cast it later for 6, essentially making it 8 to cast. The rebalanced version is still 7 to cast. It says take an extra turn after this one. If the spell was foretold, which means you use the foretell ability below, then you create two 1/1 bird tokens. So originally, it makes two 1/1 birds, you take another turn. And then you have the option to do the whole foretell bit if you want to save it for later in the game. This time around, you just take an extra turn. It doesn't produce any 1/1 birds. It then now requires you to use the foretell ability in order for that to happen. Again, this is massively confusing. If this is a spell that you do use, you're going to forget. Okay, take an extra turn. So it is like that's the bulk of what the spell does. But those 1/1 bird tokens could have been used or could have been part of like something that you are using as a win condition that, oh, then I can attack during my extra turn because they no longer have summoning sickness. Nope, you can't do that anymore. So you have to use the foretell version. It's making you go through an additional hoop and then essentially now making it into 9 to cast because you spend 2 to foretell and then 7 to cast Arlen's Epiphany. Am I even pronouncing that right? Epiphany. There, Epiphany. There. But basically, it's again a really weird way of changing the card that, okay, maybe they don't need to make a new version of it, but I think they should have just left it as is. I don't know what this balances other than making it cost more. So again, player mistakes. This is going to happen, especially if you are playing standard. If you are, okay, they introduced some events with like little weird wild casting costs and stuff like that. But there's a way that you can kind of separate like a little fun side event from competitive Magic and from like standard formats. This is blurring those lines. Another example, which I wanted to bring up also, is Ezeka's Chariot. If you notice, most of these are from Kaldheim. So it's a 4 to cast vehicle. It's a 4/4 vehicle. When it comes into the battlefield, you get 2 green cats, 2/2 green cats. And pretty much it has an ability to crew for 4, which means both the cats have to pull the chariot. Okay? Let's look at now the digital rebalanced version. It costs the same, but when it comes into play, you only get 1 cat. So you could already make a mistake there. And then it changed the crew cost from 4 to 2. Even though the artwork still has 2 cats in the artwork, you only get 1. And apparently it only needs half the effort to actually get this thing running, which is confusing as hell. Because if you are using this digitally, or if you are using this in paper form, and then decide to switch over, you like, oh, I'm gonna play digital. I play the chariot, I get 1 cat. You're like, what? Wait, there's supposed to be 2. And then when you decide to crew, or like you play your creatures and you're preparing, and all of a sudden you're like totally confused because the crew cost is now different. Again, easily rectified by not playing Alchemy at all. But for those of you who really enjoy playing Magic, you are going to be diving into these contents. For people who even play digital, printed, even MTG online, like there are people who are so immersed in Magic that this is just going to be a hella confusing. If you're trying to bring new players in, this is going to be like one of these advanced formats because you got to give people a heads up that you're going to be seeing things that won't match what's on paper. And one of the prime examples of this, and it's going to be the last one that I'm showing you guys, is Omnath Locus of Creation. Omnath has gone from mono green to green red to blue green red, now blue white green red. Every version of him has added 1 color, but apparently the digital version has added 1 colorless. So his cost has changed. From a 4 to cast elemental creature, he is now 5 to cast. Imagine that you do use this in the format that you play, and then decide that you're gonna like dabble into digital. You might just totally get all your math wrong because you thought that he cost 4. What's worse is his opening line: when Omnath, Locus of Creation, enters the battlefield, draw a card. The digital version says when Omnath, Locus of Creation, enters the battlefield, scry 1. Those are two different effects for the same card. This isn't a timing effect. This isn't, well, it kind of is like Arlen's Epiphany, that you don't get the 1/1 birds. But this one is worse because the card fundamentally does something different. In Commander, Omnath is used in an infinite loop that lets you draw cards constantly. And if you decide to go digital here, or if you are playing digital and move to printed, you're going to be surprised that the card does two totally different things. Its other effects on the bottom for landfall are exactly the same, which is fine. But it's enter the battlefield. This is their idea of rebalancing it. Hella confusing again. So, to sum this up again, I'm not saying that alchemy is bad. I'm not here to diss it. Again, it might be better if it was treated like its own little entity, because there are some fundamental problems here. First and foremost, what I've been saying over and over again here is player errors. Players are going to make mistakes. You know, what you saw digitally and now what you're seeing printed or vice versa don't match up. That's going to be a problem. And that might even just provide players a negative experience. That, like, oh, I spent so much money building this Omnath deck, only to find out that, now that I'm going to be doing it digitally, it doesn't even work. It's not that good because it doesn't really draw you a card. Instead, you just scry. So, or my Arlen's Epiphany extra turn, I'll attack you with birds combo, and it doesn't work on the other format that I'm playing. So it ends up just, it might silo people. So this kind of goes to my final point here on the bottom, that it's going to divide the player base. Some people might enjoy their cards playing a specific way, so that you can decide they can just totally avoid alchemy altogether, which will make it a totally dead project for Magic. That, okay, they might realize that they made a really terrible idea here, and at the same time alienate players from even wanting to continue playing digitally. Or players will enjoy digital so much that they're not really going to go to printed anymore, because at least in the digital version they can fix the cards when they're OP. So that goes to the second point here, that I'm seeing a potential decline in card design quality. That if they make a mistake, oh, we can fix it in digital. But what about the printed version? Okay, that are they still going to be play testing it at the levels that they used to? Are they going to just ban cards? So there, this kind of comes to the next point, that more bannings for paper Magic. That, oh, this card is busted. Oh, we'll fix it in digital, and then it's playable there. But in printed form, oh, it's outright banned. How does that help anyone? So let's go back to like the recent bannings that came out in Commander. Let's say Hull Breacher, that was recently banned, along with the Golos Tireless Pilgrim. Oh, and digital, you know what? We're just gonna go ahead and just like up his casting cost or lower the power and toughness, or oh, he doesn't look for a land anymore when he comes into play. So they can fix the digital version, which might even lead people to think that, oh, this card is so useful, and maybe I'll buy a printed version of it as an investment because it's going to go up in value. No, because there's a totally different version when it comes to print. I'm seeing potential issues here that can easily be avoided by not touching alchemy, but then might divide the player base. So I turn this over to those who are watching, or if you're not watching the live stream, if you're seeing the recording of this, definitely comment and share your thoughts. I mean, what are your thoughts on digital only cards and the introduction of alchemy into Magic the Gathering? This is really a digital only format. I can totally go on with my life with zero impact because I don't play digital magic. I play physical printed magic. But what I'm worried about is that I might end up on a table with some players that when they see a card, find or get surprised or find themselves dumbfounded because they thought that this card did a particular thing that it really doesn't when it comes to printed form. You don't want to be that guy like, sir, are you reading your card? Could you look at that again? I think that you made a mistake. Like, imagine at the end of your turn with somebody with a Cosmos Elixir that, that's taking a step back here to the examples that we provided, that they got so used to the digital version having a scry 1 that when you're playing magic with them in person, they end their turn by looking at the top of their library and tuck a card under. My impression of this is like I'm not aware of the digital version. I might think that the guy's cheating. And it depends how people react to that situation. Call a judge, call the player out, and if they say, oh, it's in the digital version has that. How would you be able to double check? You have to be familiar with the cards. You're going to look this up. You have to backtrack. They already have information that they shouldn't have had. It's going to cause confusion, in my opinion. But again, these are only just a few cards that they've done it to. But based on their announcement, they're going to be continuously rebalancing cards. So for people who are playing this format, there almost has to be like a warning for them that, every time you step out of Alchemy, please be aware that the information or the cards that you have may not match what is on Arena for standard or even in printed form, which is a whole level of confusion that I really don't think that we need. Hey, we got a comment here. Hey, Clint. Yes, it really is a strange approach. Um, I don't understand why they decided to do rebalancing. Instead, they could have really just outright banned certain cards and made newer versions, or yeah, with different artwork or something like that. I mean, they have made unique cards for digital only, but rebalancing cards is really, this is again stepping towards something like Hearthstone and other digital games that they have made these changes. Actually, it's even come to the point that, um, let's say for Hearthstone, for example, they had to rebalance certain cards and they had to refund players in-game currency because of the changes. So they're kind of walking into this that thinking that, oh, they'll be able to fix stuff, but there is repercussions for these actions. So these are what I'm seeing. Okay, so based from digital only cards, I already shared these points that I think are a problem: exclusivity of cards, division of focus and resources spent to developing cards, and even formats, promotions, even down to like maybe giveaways, friendly, local game shop support might even be affected by this. And then technically it might introduce a brand new MTG game, which I would happily accept over just this confusing little format. I mean, historic is already confusing enough because it's not modern. Modern is all of Magic the Gathering up to like 7th edition when they introduced the modern border. Historic is the same, but since they don't have all of the Magic cards in Arena, they eventually just had to make their own little brand, which is just dumbfounding. Put the cards in. Apparently, you're making digital only cards. Why not just put the old cards missing to make modern what modern is? So, we're going to be seeing a lot of player errors as a result of this, I think. There might be a total decline in the quality of cards being developed and put out in sets. Maybe a fear of it being unbalanced. Oh, hey, comment really quick. Oh, hey, yep. Yes, there are. You know what? Not the only time that refunds have ever happened in digital games. Actually, in some other games, that when they rotate cards out, that they do give players in-game currency versions of it because they can no longer play it, or they introduce another format which like lets you play old cards that they're not in rotation anymore. So, it's a kind of half-assed way of playing it. And yes, Denmark does bring up a really good point here. Yep, Magic is turning into L5R, so Legend of the Five Rings, in the last days before Final Fantasy Flight took over. So, yep, I don't see why. Again, they're trying to keep it, of course, contained in its own little format, but I really think that what might be the problem here is that if players enjoy it, if it has really good feedback, it could really become bigger than they can control, and then it's gonna impact arena standard, and it could impact printed, because people are gonna want to see these cards and like, oh, secret layer Alchemy, but they're not playable. Like, you can't use them, but you have them in printed form. Like, why? So this is gonna lead to possible bannings. They might make cards that are not developed well enough for print version, because they have this understanding that, oh, if we mess up, we can rebalance it in digital. That shouldn't be the case. They should really be treating each of these cards in that when it's printed and you make a mistake, you're going to have to live with it. One terrible example of this is the companion mechanic. They put it out there and realized how bad it was that they had to change the ruling of how companion even works. And it's not even printed on any of the cards until recently, when one of the 10 commanders was reprinted. So Lures of the Dream Den has the new wording. One of the 9 companions has the accepted ruling. So it's just really weird. Red, hey, some more comments. Denmark, yep, there will be 2 or 3 modes: open, legacy, legal, right? It's just, you know, in my honest opinion, I think that if they had the time to create digital only cards and these rebalancing, they could have just put in the other sets into Arena so that people can play modern. Or you know what? They could have just spent more time trying to develop multiplayer so you can finally have like a proper game of Brawl that might even come close to Commander. They know that Commander makes money. Why are they not putting their time and effort into making Arena happen, Commander happen digitally? It's dumbfounding. I'm not gonna tell them how to do their jobs, but instead, again, so I just share this information and my thoughts. Uh Again, if you don't want Alchemy, don't. I'm not touching it. I'm not playing digital at this time, so it's really nothing for me. But again, I'm worried that I might end up in tables with people that I'm going to have to explain these things to them, and that's really part of, or it's going to become really the roots of a bigger problem. Those were my thoughts. Thank you so much, Clint. Thank you so much, Denmark, Anna, Mark. For those of you who have been joining and sharing your comments, I truly appreciate it. It's been, I guess, informative in a way, but at the same time, this is really more of an editorial for of myself for the alchemy format that was introduced earlier last week. What are your thoughts on it? Please comment and share this video. Again, we have a lot of content on the Variable Play Network. We have, mostly of the other board game variants, and this is really, I guess, maybe the one and only Magic show. But you know what? If you'd like to see more, please comment, share, let people know. And till next episode, till next Sunday. Thank you, and keep gaming.